All right. Hey, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started here, just so we give you guys time for your questions. Again, my name is Christian. I work with the National Black Programming Consortium. And these sessions, there's four of them that are going to be happening, are basically just to go through the NBPC 360 application and go through the different segments of the application and answer any direct questions that people might have for things that might be confusing, or even any sort of technical questions in terms of any problems you might have been experiencing so far as we try to set up your application. So I'm going to do a straight up walkthrough and just show you how to find the application and how to go through the different segments of it. First thing to note is you just go to the NBPC homepage, which is at blackpublicmedia.org, and you can either click on that banner right here with the girl with the camera, or you can click on the For Producers section, and you should see a drop-down menu that will take you directly to the producer portal, which you have to set up an account here before you're able to complete any application for NBPC, NBPC 360, or any of the other open calls that we have. I'm already logged in here as a test user, but I can log out just to so you get a sense of what that looks like straight off the bat. It should take you to a screen that looks like this if this is your first time, and you can just click on the register button here. Once you do that, you'll see a small form that looks like this, which is basically some account details. One thing that people often forget is the required fields. There's one here for your first and last name at the very bottom of the page. And if you don't fill that out, it will sort of cause the technical loop to keep happening for you. It's just something to be aware of, FYI. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You should get an email after you set up your account, and that way you should be able to just log into the portal any other time that you come to the site. The first page, once you're logged into the portal, that you'll notice is just a straight up dashboard landing page, and basically it's where we put up some news information, job opportunities, and direct links to any information we think producers might find relevant. But what we're going to focus on today is the grants page, which is where you can find all the different forms for all the different open calls. There's other functionality here as well, like the profile and the directory, which is separate information. Like if the directory is just if you need to find other producers in the field, and the profile is sort of our social networking area for you to be able to put up your information and share other people's information as well. Uh, so that's all future stuff. The grant section is where you will find the NBPC 360 open call application. And it's first on the list because it's the most current. There's other applications in here if you wanted to send an application to Afropop or our general acquisition request, or if you are a local organization looking to do screenings with our content. You can also access the guidelines for NBPC 360 from here. It will take you to a separate pop-up page, so just be aware of that. It's NBPC 360 guidelines, and it's just the detailed information that you should take some time to go through when you have a minute, because it breaks down examples of different parts of the project, as well as a general overview and funding and licensing general terms for projects that eventually go forward in the process. The application itself, when you click on Apply Now, should pop up with a brief guideline set at the top and then segments at the bottom. I'll go through each of the sections now, and feel free, please, if anyone has any questions. I'm actually going to unmute you if you have a mic, if that's easier for you to do, or you can just type your questions in text at the bottom of the page. So the first part of the application you will notice is basically contact information, producer basics. There has to be one lead producer attached to the project whose account is basically in charge of the application. You can have up to about 4 producers attached to the project that are lead producers. You obviously, when you get your project rolling, if you are funded, you can work with whomever you choose or however many producers you choose. But one of our main things is that one person is in charge of the application that gets submitted. We also require you to identify how your producers identify racially, and this is not to exclude anyone ultimately, but based on the way we're funded and our mission, we have to make sure that at least one of the lead producers in the project is of African American descent. So that's a requirement. But everybody else on your project can be anyone, and from anywhere, obviously. So you put in your your contact information for your lead producer. You let us know what role specifically. Attach your resume, your most updated resume, and then in this section below, you should be able to add additional team members, up to four, up to three. It looks like. And then the second part of the application is about production capacity. We basically ask you to identify what kind of producer you are: a station producer, a freelance producer, or independent producer. Station producer being someone who has access directly to equipment or a public TV station or even radio station with video equipment, just to give us a sense of sort of what your infrastructure is. Freelance producers obviously are producers who not necessarily have legal entities or production companies or even equipment, or sort of more free floating. And independent producers we're defining as producers who have a legal production company entity and perhaps some small infrastructure of their own. Maybe they have a camera, maybe they have some additional resources to bring to the table. And this is just to give us a sense of what we in the incubator can provide for you if your project moves forward. At the end of the day, it doesn't determine whether or not you move forward. It's basically just information for us to have and be aware of. You can also select a station partner from this list, or just let us know who your local flagship television station is in your local area. We aim to work with all the public TV stations affiliated or in the area that you live in, so that ultimately we can work with them to provide any additional resources you might need during the incubator, or even afterwards, as you start to think about distribution and audience engagement. There are four types of projects that we're accepting into the NBPC 360 open call. Essentially nonfiction and fiction series content. The main thing is all the projects have to be series content. The first part is multi-part series for television. These are all nonfiction. We can't really deal with fiction projects for broadcast, obviously because of budgeting in terms of what resources are currently available. Each grant will be up to $150,000. And at the moment, there is no distribution path for fiction broadcast in the current scheme of things. However, nonfiction multi-part series, historical series, cooking shows, travel shows, general cultural information shows are all welcome in this category. The web series category, nonfiction, is also open here, and an example of that might be Black Folk Don't, which is a series that we've supported with Ms. Angela Tucker, who is the producer and director of that series. Nonfiction web series is basically cultural information shows, cooking shows, identity shows, shows that are based on fact, and obviously strong characters. Web series scripted content is also available for funding in this open call. Scripted content obviously refers to fiction shows, and these shows can be, they can explore the range. They can be about identity. They can be about historical stories. At the end of the day, the point is to come up with ideas that you feel are scalable, ultimately can be produced with the grants that are being provided, and then move forward in a legitimate way. Finally, you can also submit interactive or transmedia projects, and these are digital projects that are ultimately about interactivity. So you're creating either a website or you're creating an online portal that is supposed to facilitate additional immersive learning about a subject that people can really take a deep dive into. And if you look through the guidelines, we do provide a couple of examples. An example that right off my head I can think of might be the Hollow Project, hollowdocumentary.com. That project is telling the story of a mining town that's losing a lot of is infrastructure because the industry is leaving. So they've taken the opportunity to break that down into like a very detailed websites that's sort of immersive and has video and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of places to go with interactive, but ideally we're looking for projects that can feel immersive and have a lot of information for people to dive into. Uh, if you guys have not seen any of this content, or if I'm moving too fast, feel free to let me know and I can stop and answer any questions or even pull up some web URLs that might be helpful to you. First part of the project basics section here is the log line, basically trying to get your hook in there. I'll also, as I move forward, just try to give you some tips, I guess, in terms of what we've noticed as we review applications, because we often review them not just for NBPC open calls, but for other open calls, for other funders. We've been at the table a lot, so I can give you some general heads ups, things that you should be aware of. Logline definitely has to have a hook in there. Just let us know what is, the most attractive thing about your project. What pulled you in, and what do you feel could pull a general audience in? It should be quick. It's like an elevator pitch, and we only give you about 80 words to do that in. So it probably takes some practice in terms of how you want to pitch that and grab your judge's attention. Then we need you to give us a synopsis of your idea, which is basically an overview of the story that's going to happen in your project. If you're thinking of your project as a series, which you all are, you basically want to give a sense of the world into which you want people to live for 5 or 6 episodes. You want to make it feel important, and you also want to give us a sense of the main characters as well. The question about intellectual property is basically giving us a sense of who has the rights to the project. Once you get a grant from the NBPC 360 open call, you are essentially allowing us to provide that content to public television, because how we are funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, any fund or grant that we give out is basically a license for public television. So you should know that and going in, and you should also know that the rights have to be available. If they are in possession of another entity or person, you want to acquire those rights before you even go into the application process, because that should be part of your letters of support as well. You want to give us a sense of if there's a website, if something exists that we can take a look at, or the judges can take a look at as they review your project. Estimated project length. These don't have to be set in stone, obviously, because part of the point of the incubator itself is to help you come up with the ideal format for your project. So if you, for example, chose to do a web series, or sorry, a webcast that's about 15 minutes per episode, if you said that here, we wouldn't necessarily hold you to it. We would, however, hold you to the genre that you pick right off the bat. So you do want to be clear and sure about these 4 segments here, which is multi-part series, web series, nonfiction, web series scripted, or interactive transmedia, because obviously those segments and categories are less flexible. Then you want to give us a general sense of how many episodes are going to be in your project. Part of the reason we're asking this is really to gauge a sense of the team's readiness ultimately in terms of producing this content. During the 6-month period, 4 to 6 month period after the grants are received for the pilot, you're not necessarily required to produce all the episodes involved in this. However, we do want to get a sense of the scope of your project, particularly as you plan your budgeting as well. There is also next here the target platform or format that you want for your project. And you should definitely take a lot of time to review what you want to say in this segment, because the goal here is for us to find out how informed your project team is about your project goals, but how your project will be presented to the world. Is this an interactive website? Is this a fiction series? Give us a sense of where your project is going to end up. We're talking target platform and format. We're trying to get you to get a sense of the audience that you're trying to reach and where they live. Do they access content on their phones? Are they Netflix people? Do they watch PBS? Who is your audience? Why are they attracted to this content? And why will your strategy for reaching them be successful? Additional portions of the application here also include treatment and proposal for your project. The treatment and proposal for your project shouldn't obviously be a novel. We are not necessarily looking um, to get you to tell us, scene by scene, but we want to get a solid sense of what your story is. If your proposal, your treatment is about 3 pages and really does break down the character, place, and general intention of your story, then you have a pretty good head start there in terms of giving the judges enough information that they can dive into, but also not necessarily worrying yourself in terms of your prose. A lot of writers are obviously proud of the way they write, but what you're looking for here is not so much that you're looking for simplicity, because at the end of the day, a lot of the judges for these open calls and a lot of open calls are being asked to review upwards of 20 to 30 applications at a time. So whether or not they're impressed by your writing is pretty secondary to whether or not they understand what you're trying to tell them, what the story is. So you should bear that in mind, which is why it's helpful if you have someone on your team who's good with writing in terms of clarity. You definitely want that person to be leading the boat in terms of submitting the application or working with you on the application to get the language right. Letters of support here, we're looking for statements from either production companies, public TV stations, professional artists, veteran artists, series producers who are aware of your work, have worked with you, or are invested and stakeholders in the project directly. So these are people who can speak to the efficacy of your team, the reason why the project itself is timely right now, and all that information that can give your project give us a sense that your project is being supported by more than yourself, which there's nothing wrong with being an independent producer, obviously, but we want to get a sense that your project, once it's out in the world, not only has an audience, but has professional support in terms of people who are excited to be part of it and see it come to fruition. Are there any questions at this point? Just I can I'm going to continue going, and I'll just make sure. Um, I see one question here. Before hearing about this opportunity, I wanted to approach my local station as a partner for my series, but I decided not to after seeing that you have a core group of stations you work with and will match successful projects with. But I should ask to be sure, does it hurt or help to apply with partnerships in place with stations not in your core group? And could there be multiple partners? I definitely would not want to cut off the opportunity to be mentored by your station folks down the line. Most definitely, we are not in any way restricting the partnership list to the producers or the producing stations that we've reached out to. We reached out to a lot of stations, and basically, word is still spreading about NBPC 360. So feel free to be the one to tell your station about NBPC 360 and list them as a flagship station on your application if they're interested. And definitely get a meeting with someone if that's the situation, and have them write you a letter of support on their letterhead. That only helps your application, and it doesn't really matter, what public TV station you're reaching out to. Our goal is to find infrastructure anywhere. So if it's a private production company or a public TV station, we really just want to make sure that the producer, when they get into the incubator and if they move on to the pilot phase, they have support for making their production happening. Cutting their trailer, a desk, Wi-Fi, somewhere to sit and work. If you're not based in New York, there's only so much we can do for you. So we definitely want to make sure that infrastructure-wise, your mentors and your producing station are there for you as well. So the answer to that is definitely you can come on board with your own public TV partners as well. Um, cool. So moving forward, the next section here is your project status. We want to get a sense of what your timeline is. The general timeline of the project is that the deadline is January 9th. 10 projects will be selected to come and pitch in New York, and that pitch will happen in April. There will be a boot camp in March of 2015, and then all the final projects by the end of April will be announced. And this is 3 projects that we'll be moving forward. Those projects will then get their pilot licenses and start production in about May. So Your own project schedule should pretty much reflect that. Let us know where things fall in terms of different character outreach, locations, any other considerations that you need, and even additional financing that you're reaching out to. If you're going to hear about it in March, for example, you should let us know. So, project status is giving us a full scope of what you've done for your project so far, even without 360, because at the end of the day, we want to complement those efforts. We want to add to the pool. If you've already reached out to a certain foundation for funding, we want to be able to provide them additional information if you get into the incubator. There's a long list of ways you can keep us informed about your project status, but basically we want to know how much work you've put into it, where your project stands, and will our funding, if selected, will it help you, and how will it help you within the time span that we currently have? A lot of why we started NBPC 360 was about reducing the average length of production times, and a lot of producers just don't have the scope of resource to make their projects happen in a timely fashion. So we're dealing with 5-year averages or so. We really want to turn that around. We want to be able to have 18-month averages, so that you are not only producing serious content, but you're able to produce a lot of it, because at the end of the day, we're finding that a lot of distributors are demanding that, more content all the time, everywhere. So that's a lot of the goal here. Um, and then, of course, your timeline is basically giving us, as much as you can, a step-by-step idea what's going to happen. What's happening in January, what's happening in March, what's happening in April. Walk us through that step by step. Your project budget is an itemized budget of your whole series idea. So the grant that we're giving might directly support just your pilot. However, we want to get a sense of, as a whole, what your project plan is. We also want to get a good sense of your project income raised so far, even if you've done a Kickstarter, or even if your mom just wrote you a check for $2,000. We kind of want to get a sense of what you've been able to raise so far, so that at the end of the day, we're coming in and we're complementing that. And we have a question here from Dilcy. Is it better to submit an application on a project that has already had 3 to 4 episodes on community broadcasting channel, or an entirely new project that is still in the idea stage and has never been broadcast on the internet, TV, or radio? Um, I guess I'm going to give you a personal opinion on that, but also give you something to be aware of. Personally, I think it makes more sense to come with an idea that has already been broadcast, that has an infrastructure and has a foothold in a specific audience, because that's what you're bringing to the table as well. You're not just bringing the idea to the table, you're bringing that audience to the table, and that is terribly valuable. This is not to say that ideas that are just ideas at the moment are not valuable or as valuable, but there is a lot of work to be done in proving to the judges that your idea, if it's a fresh off the boat new idea, has an audience. And a lot of that proof can come from, you can put that in the target platforms area, you can put it in the audience engagement or distribution strategy area of the application. You basically want to prove that you know where your audience is, and the content you're going to create will go find them and bring them to public television or public media. In general. So, as a base answer, I would say producing or reinvesting in something that already has an audience is better. Just it's easier, I should say. But then, as long as you do the work for proving that the new idea is just as viable, I think you could go either way. I hope that answers. Okay, good. And then the budget. Ultimately, these projects, we're looking for you to be a bit smart about it, budget-wise. We want to be able to provide a new way of supporting content, so that every year when we do this, we find new ideas and give voice to producers who don't traditionally have this sort of resource. Which is all to say, really think about what is the best, most efficient way to pay for your project. per episode? Like, what is the cost of producing a single episode of your project, and why is it that you, with your team and the resources you have, that where you're based, and the potential support that we could give you, why would you be able to do this for, say, $100 or $150,000? Question here from Sawande: should we include in-kind donations in the budget? If no money has been raised, will this count against the applicant? You should definitely include your in-kind considerations in here, because at the end of the day, we want to know how much money you've found, but in general, we want to know how much support your project has as a whole. So definitely put the in-kind in there. If there's someone who's going to give you space to sit down even, or just to think, or to support the project in some real way, do your best to estimate the value of that in-kind donation, and let us know about it. It will not count against you if you have not so far been able to do this, to raise money or to get in-kind support. The idea for us here is to find all kinds of projects and to be able to support them. So we're not limiting our review in that way. So you can definitely submit an application even if you don't have in-kind or money raised already. But we definitely want the kind of producer who's already being proactive in a lot of ways. So yeah, feel free to put the in-kind stuff in there and do your best to be as close as you can to the value of that. If someone's giving you desks to sit at, 2 times out of the week, there's value in that. If you had to rent that, just be able to estimate what that cost is at the end of the day, so that, as I was saying, you can really give us a clear sense of how much does per episode does it cost to make your idea real. Hope that answered that. And then the additional part of this section is about fleshing out a bit more, some detail, and all of that I was talking about, preparedness. Cool. So one day, ancillary incubator support. We basically want to get a sense of, beyond the money, like what are the additional ways that the NBPC 360 incubator can support you. In general, the incubator will provide um, partnerships like producing stations. We'll also, each project that gets moved forward into the funding phase will also get a mentor, and based on our outreach, we can also hook you up with an executive producer. So there's a lot of different ways we can go out in search of supporting the project, even things like hosting specific seminars that are designed to really help you come up with marketing strategies and audience engagement strategies and things like that. But if you, what we want here in this section is for you to give us a sense of that. What are the parts of your project that you feel are lacking? And lacking not because you didn't do anything, but lacking because you just don't have access to these types of people. And let us know why they're important to you. List any NGO partnerships or people or technologists that you feel might support your project in a way beyond cutting a check to you, so that we can then join in the work of building that team around you. Then we want to get a sense of your funding request. If you take a look here, you'll specifically see what's available. Up to $150,000 specifically for nonfiction multi-part series, up to about $100,000 for scripted or nonfiction web series, and between 25 and 100 for interactive or transmedia projects. We basically want to get a sense here of how your funds will be used. Um, why is this injection of funding to your project important at this time? And how do you plan to use it to benefit the project completion? Then we want to get a sense of your confirmed funders, financiers, and project backers. These are the people who you've been able to enlist on your project, but also uh, below you'll see a potential funders section. What are your dreams? Like where would you go to ultimately if you could? Would you go to the Ford Foundation's LGBT department because their guidelines specifically might be interested in your project? Give us a sense of those additional organizations and funders and supporters that you feel will be useful to your project. Are there any other questions as I move into the final sections here? Cool. Okay. Uh, the additional information here we have is artistic statement. Um, We've limited this to about 150 words because y'all know you like to talk about your art. I know you're an artist and you're sensitive about your stuff. But at the end of the day, I think part of what we want here is basically to give you an opportunity to explain your project relevance. Why is it an important topic to be exploring at this point in time? Um, who is that, inspiration for you? Like how did it push you to get to this level? Because as we all know, this is a commitment to be able to do this every day. So we want to get a sense of not only your project's relevance, but the passion you have for it. And the outreach and audience development section is just as important as the line items in your budget. A lot of people might leave this to the last week when they're writing, and I think that's a mistake, just to give you a heads up, because the point here is to really give us a sense of who are the real people in the real world. And give us numbers as far as you have them. Who are the real people who want this project, who are clamoring for it right now? Why does it matter that this project isn't out there? It matters to these people. That those are the people you want to give us a sense of here. So what we're looking for ultimately is some sense of the demographic and on some sense of their audience behavior, where they go, how they watch content, as far as you know. So give us a sense of who they are, why that content is important to them. Uh, a generic category I can think of is Black atheists, and this is from past explorations in terms of content we've put out there. There was an episode of our supported web series Black Folk Don't, which is about Black folk don't do atheism. Now, going to the episode, I had no idea that it would have as much interaction as it did ultimately. But then, thinking about it later on, it made total sense because where are these atheists going to go? Not church, obviously, but they have an online community that's very active and very much dedicated to sharing content and talking with each other. There's Facebook groups, there's all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the research that you have to invest yourself in, even before you write this outreach section, is joining that Facebook group, joining that Twitter feed, so that you can get a sense of the real day-to-dayness of what it means to be part of that audience, because that only makes your distribution strategy at the end of the day more solid. So something to be aware of and really keep an eye on is that section. And then the online presence section is basically give us a sense of what your content will be doing in the digital space. Where is it going to live? Who ultimately, really, from your team is going to be in charge of it, and how you're going to be able to support that content moving forward if you get funded. Then just some general information, and one of the last segments here is the work sample. You can upload directly a video work sample here, or there you can upload up to 3 files in here. You can upload MP4 files, MOV files, or AVI files, which our judges can just watch directly in the application. Or you can upload a video sample links file, which is basically just a PDF file that you can upload with password protected links to all your work samples. At the end of the day, the most important thing about your work sample is being able to get it as close as you can to the final product of your project, which is not to say it has to look super polished or anything, but we're talking about no more than three approximately 7 to 10 minute clips. So you want to do your best to show the style that you're proposing and the fact that that style can be achieved by this team. If you don't have content like that that's directly related to this project that you're pitching, you want to find elements in previous historical projects that your team has done, elements that are relevant or speak to their ability to do something for this project. Obviously, submitting if you're going to do a fictional web series, submitting the work you did for, I don't know, some multi-part historical project is not necessarily relevant. Like, it showcases that you're a competent producer, which is great, but to take it to the next level as a work sample, it has to definitely speak to something specific that you're bringing to this project from that old project. Whether it is the access to the subjects in the film or access to the the crew in that film, whatever it is, it really has to speak to your current project. And to be real, you have to be brief. At the end of the day, it has to catchy. Um, it has to be something that hooks the judges into saying, "Oh, I remember that application because that work sample grabbed my attention." Question: Can we send a sample episode? Sorry, can we send a sample episode that's 26 minutes? Um, the answer to that is no, pretty much, because at the end of the day, even if your project is supposed to be a 26-minute project, at the end of the day, you you want to give us a sense of that, and you don't necessarily want the judge to sit there for 26 minutes. They're not actually required to watch that for the whole 26 minutes. At the end of the day, if the file is able to be uploaded, you can obviously upload it and it'll be 26 minutes. But the caution I'm giving here is that you want to find a way to take a nice 10-minute segment of that 26 minutes and upload that as your sample. Question: Can you apply with more than one project? Yes, you may apply with more than one project, and you may apply as part of more than one project team. But you should be aware that at the end of the day, when you come down to being in the top 10 or even the top 25, if all your projects are in the pool, it's human nature. There's going to be a panel that's, physically convened to discuss the project, and that might be part of the consideration. Is can one person be committed across the board? At the end of the day, though, if you're involved in more than one project, really only one of those projects can move forward, because in the way that the incubator is designed to be so immersive, we really couldn't have one producer attached to two funded projects, just because, you know, opening the gates to more people, but just logistically speaking, we really want to be able to invest directly in these projects. So short answer, yes, you can apply to more than one project, but you should be aware that if your projects are both awesome, really only one of them has a solid chance of moving forward. Next question here. Can the lead producer submit two different show concepts for one category? Is there a limit for show application submission based on lead producer? I guess that's generally what I just answered, but there's something different in here about two different show concepts for one category. Um, yeah, I mean, if you have two ideas that are distinct enough to support two application teams, or even two different um, ideas that really stand apart for themselves, then yeah, totally. But again, think about how much time it's going to require to do something as simple as your, not as simple, something as involved as your outreach or audience and development strategy. Doing that research and all that stuff is really going to be important for each project. So as long as you have the team and the support to make that happen for your application, I say totally go for it. And then finally here you have the agreement release, which basically breaks down our licensing terms in a small generic way. Obviously, if project moves forward, there's a more detailed contract involved. But the long and short of it is that all the content that is granted through this open call has to be available to public television licensing. So that is my song and dance for you this morning. Does anyone have any additional questions or any part of this again that you want me to go over in terms of the application? Again, this recording will be available moving forward for you to come back and reference, but we have 3 more sessions that we're going to be hosting. Later today at 4 o'clock, there's another session hosted by Kay Shaw, our communications Strategic Partnership Director. And then on the 19th, next Friday, there's another 11 a.m. and another 4 p.m. session. So, yep. Cool. Thanks, guys. We really are excited about this. This is a really great project because we are getting some great feedback from all different sorts of producers that we never knew about NBPC. So I think it's going to be a great way to get a sense of what's really out there. And once we're able to move forward with serious series projects, I think it behooves not just NBPC but future producers who are looking to get funding from us. So yeah, that's our application clinic. Feel free to send us any questions via email if anything pops up for you. And of course, our hashtag is always available. Just send a tweet to Black Public Media, that's BLK Public Media, using the NBPC 360 hashtag, and we will get back to you. So thanks, guys, and yeah, thank you.